All right, guys, we're back again. COVID cabal. Been a couple weeks. Um, been very busy. Been on transit. So at the beach right now, hanging with the family, and don't have a lot of time. But I wanted to get a little bit of a COVID cabal in here because everybody, as usual, melting down, losing their shit. So as usual, if you guys are here, leave a comment in the chat. Leave a comment in the chat. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. Let's do this. Let's do this. We're gonna talk about a single topic today, okay? Topic on everybody's mind. The Epstein files, Trump, and the team, the dream team, saying how this stuff is Epstein not only didn't kill himself, Epstein had no reason to kill himself. He was an innocent man. By the way, Ghislaine Maxwell is still in prison, right? For for what? Good question. Before we jump in, let's talk about the wine real quick. This is La Crema Christi del Vesuvio. So as you guys know, I was recently in Positano, Bay of Naples. The red is more famous than the white. The red, at least, is known. So by the way, these are grapes that are grown on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius, which, as you guys know, mountain that destroyed Pompeii in an eruption during Roman times. So this wine experts, wine historians say that this wine is most similar to the wine that the Romans themselves drank. So it's kind of interesting. Um, I would not say it's a prestigious wine. It's also not a cheap wine. It's kind of in like it's not like cheap plonk, but it's nothing like crazy. And it uses relatively old, obscure varietals. So this the whitest Caporetto, mostly known for being able to maintain a lot of acidity in a hot climate. Um, Very nice wines. Lacrima Christi del Vesuvio literally means the tears of Christ from Vesuvius. So pretty cool wine. Let's have some of it. And it's lovely. A little bit of honey. Acidity is nice. It's just a very the structure of the wine is really well balanced. It's a little big, which is normal for Campagna whites. Like I had a Greco de Tufo the other night. Um, Greco de Tufo is a different varietal, but also from Campagna. Pretty, pretty big as well. They just get a lot of heat. There's a lot of sun here, but you get a lot of complexity as well. So, highly recommend La Crema Christi del Vesuvio. You guys should be able to find it in many stores, many big stores at least. All right, I got to take a big swig there because of this topic. Let's get right into it. U.S. Department of Justice and FBI joint Epstein memo. There was no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. Okay. So we know, obviously, that this is not true, right? We all know that Epstein was clearly part of a blackmail operation. Trump, in many ways, was the one who put the profile on Epstein. We know that Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. A lot of this focus actually came up in Trump's first term on Epstein. A lot of people only know about Epstein because of Trump and because of stuff that Trump was doing in his first term. I also want to give, of course, credit to Mike Cernovich, who really put a lot of work into this as well to get this stuff kind of exposed. So I understand. Look, I want to say this. I understand why everybody is upset. I understand why everybody's upset. I understand how annoying it is, and I understand the tendency to want to become a doomer about all this stuff. I don't really see any reason, however, in practice, if you really think about it, I don't agree with the conclusion that Trump is captured, or the softer conclusion that Trump is unable to reveal it because him and Cash and Pam Bondi would have a gun to their head if they did it. Okay. And I want to break this down for you guys to talk about in big picture. First things first, though, I have to say this. I have to say it. I don't like to be, for season 1 of COVID Cabal, I had quite the ego, right? I was humbled. I try to be a humble guy. So, I don't want to be cocky or anything like that, but I just want to point out that everybody who has been saying since the beginning of Trump's term and before Trump's term that Trump was some Zionist sellout, Trump was going to go to take us to war with Iran, or Trump was going to, push for mass amnesty, or Trump is going to cuck, Trump is this, Trump is... Every single time these people have said something, they are wrong. Every single time they have been wrong, okay? We didn't go to war with Iran. We bombed their nuclear site. It was a complete success. It accomplished multiple geopolitical goals all at the same time and completely castrated Israel's ability to exacerbate this war with Iran, which is what the cabal wanted. People don't like that because people hate the Jews and they hate Israel so much that they wanted that war to actually happen. They wanted Israel to be destroyed. I'd be honest, like I don't have a dog in this fight, but I'm going to speak it as an American. I don't have a problem as an American using military force to accomplish aims. And just because something doesn't lead to the complete destruction of the state of Israel, it doesn't make Trump a Zionist shill. I personally think that Trump wants the state of Israel to exist, but doesn't want the Zionists to be able to implement their agenda in the region. I think that there's an attempt to try to tie Israel into the broader Middle Eastern framework. I think that's what the Abraham Accords were about, and I think that's still going on right now. There's apparently a bunch of rabbis, or rather, imams in the West Bank who were talking about wanting the West Bank to join Israel as Israeli citizens. Whatever. This show is not about this, but I'm using it as an example because everybody who said we are going to war with Iran and Trump's Zionist and blah, blah, blah were wrong. They were wrong. And Trump didn't make any decisions on that foreign policy goal. He didn't make any decisions based on what people on Twitter said. He had access to intelligence briefings. He had a plan in mind. He had a very narrow thread he had to walk, and he did it. Okay? I am all about posting on Twitter. I'm all about putting pressure on the administration. And I think on certain topics like amnesty, for instance, which are policies, when you're going against someone in the Department of Agriculture, Secretary of Agriculture Brooke, who is a shill for big agro, pushing against amnesty in that domain is important. Not necessarily, I'm saying not necessarily because Trump would actually cuck on his own. I think actually on that topic, it's possible. In the same way, like with the vaccine, you have the wrong information gain into his ears. Trump makes mistakes. I think that there's no question, looking back at the vaccine, that Trump made those decisions because he had bad information coming to him. I don't have any doubt about that at this point in time, especially there was that country music singer who talked to Trump and told Trump, because Trump asked him, why do people boo me at my rallies? And he said that, unless he made up the story, but no one contradicted the story, right? And he is on good terms with Trump. And he said he was basically the first person to tell Trump to stop talking about the vaccine because everybody in the audience knows somebody who's been hurt or whatever from it. And Trump had not known that. So I think it's totally plausible that on policy decisions that maybe have some degree of nuance to them, like amnesty. I'm absolutely opposed to amnesty, obviously. But when I say bits of nuance is that, he doesn't necessarily know what do the people want, what needs to happen economically. These are things that an information gap can occur, and an advisor in your ear can truly screw up your decision-making process. So I'm not saying, I retweeted today, chimp out. I want you guys to chimp out. Okay. But I also want you guys to be fair and on certain topics to understand the strategy portion of things. I posted this earlier today. The Epstein stuff is obviously a sham, and I won't pretend to like it. But people insisting that there was no release because Trump is controlled are jumping to conclusions. Politics runs on blackmail. It's just as plausible that Trump has the information but isn't releasing it because it gives him leverage over people, which allows him strategically to prevail over his enemies and implement the agenda. We can't prove this, but we can indirectly falsify it. If Trump were being controlled, MAGA agenda would be watered down for optics or wouldn't happen at all, and Trump would be getting dragged into the usual conflicts. Instead, what we have is the most successful first 6 months in a president's term since at least FDR. Trump threads the needle in numerous international incidents and domestically gets the essential, big, beautiful bill in his cabinet passed against all odds. You may dislike this take or call me delusional, which is whatever to me at this point after all I've been through. All I want to point out is when Pam Bondi comes forward and says she has all the Epstein files for release, you don't know who immediately called Trump looking to make a deal. You are only thinking about the Epstein files and Butler, the assassination attempt, right? In terms of what you want for accountability and transparency, you're not thinking of them as chips on the board to be negotiated. We may see this information in the future or we may never see it. But if it gets the MAGA agenda implemented and saves the country, do you really care? Praying Medic had another good take on this. Why has Trump allowed Epstein's accomplices to walk free? This is not an endorsement of Trump's position regarding Epstein's accomplices. It's an attempt to explain what would be going on in his mind. Durham only indicted 3 people connected to Spygate. Kevin Klein-Smith was the only person convicted, and that was for lying to the FBI. That Danchenko and Sussman were acquitted despite a mountain of evidence of their guilt. The lesson learned from Spygate is that the courts and jury pools are generally not inclined to convict those who wronged Trump. Durham knew he had no chance of convicting Obama, Rice, Brennan, Clapper, or low-level operatives like Strzok and Page due to a politicized justice system. I can relate to this firsthand, by the way, especially in D.C. If the DOJ prosecuted Democratic members of Congress for crimes related to Epstein, what do you imagine the odds would be of getting a conviction? 0. Trump understands that it's a pointless effort trying to bring justice to corrupt elected leaders, which may be why he has given up on seeing justice for these matters from the past. He has clearly turned his attention to issues over which he has control, such as closing the border, deporting illegal aliens, and fixing the economy. He's not going to come out and tell the world our justice system is screwed, and that's why he has to let Epstein crimes grow, but that appears to be the reality we must live with. I'm not saying I agree. Logical thought process that might explain his position. By the way, another person commented on this, not on this post, but said something similar, that this is one of the reasons why it's going to go to military tribunals. I'm just adding on to what Praying Medic's saying. A natural implication of this is that the real crimes are going to be taken care of in tribunals because the justice system is captured, and you can see that firsthand. Last thing I'm going to show you before I go on our little closing monologue to analyze all this stuff together, which is a Q drop. Understand one simple fact: the U.S. is connected to the rest of the world. Knowing that, understand by default, if certain intel is released, it would cause a world war/mass suffering. We share the idea of open source, but value life and must make decisions based on outcomes and containability. Okay. So there's a couple things here, right? I will say this. Nobody understands, or superficially claims to understand, why Pam Bondi had all these influencers say, we're going to release the Epstein documents, open source. We're going to have all these people. We're going to have Cernovich. We're going to have Posobiec. We're going to have all of the good ones. And they are good ones. I love these guys. I really do. We're going to have them all come to DC, and we're going to give them the binders with all the Epstein stuff. Pam Bondi says she has them on her desk. Now, I know that there's some dispute that she just says she hasn't reviewed it, but it's on her desk. Whatever. This isn't really that important as far as I'm concerned. What's important is that there is a telegraph message that we're releasing the Epstein files, and then nothing was released of substance. So I have to have you guys think about this in terms of how Trump has behaved in general as a bluffer, of telling people he's going to do something, and then at the last second scares them, they comply. Sometimes, of course, Trump has to call the bluff, which would be the strike on Iran. You can't bluff without ever showing force. But Trump shows he's willing to use force, but most of the time he doesn't want to, and he makes that clear. He's The one thing about Trump, art of the deal master, right? Genius when it comes to deal making. He is always willing to make a deal. You can make a deal with Trump, but don't confuse the fact that Trump will make a deal with the fact that Trump will sell out his integrity. Okay? Trump makes deals to get what he wants, and he trades things and he manipulates. He's a great manipulator, and he trades things that he wants, sometimes permanently, sometimes temporarily, to gain advantage. Okay? Washington, D.C., and frankly, the world runs on blackmail. That's the whole point and lesson of Epstein, right? That's the whole point and lesson of Epstein, is that it's a blackmail circuit. Does anybody understand how, knowing that it's not just the Democratic Party that's captured, they're the worst, but that to varying degrees, half the Republican Party, if you really want to get into it, almost the entire Republican Party to some degree, right? It just depends how deep you want to go into it. Certainly, we have a good number of people in the Republican Party who are also captured, right? We know this. Nobody on COVID cabal has ever said that the Republican Party is a clean group. How on earth did Trump get every single cabinet position put through with his nominee? You can say maybe he didn't get Matt Gaetz, and maybe he didn't. We don't, he didn't really push it far enough for us to know whether that was a bluff as well to get people through. But the point I want to make with all this is, how did Trump get somebody who was like Kash Patel, who is, or Tulsi Gabbard, people who have been against the deep state from the very beginning? People like Dan Bongino spent his entire career talking about this stuff. These are people with integrity, okay? People who we know with integrity, who spoke out when it was difficult to speak out at great personal risk. Tulsi Gabbard was on a terror watch list like me. Okay? I'm saying all this stuff because how on earth do these people get confirmed by the Senate? Does anybody think for a second that some of these people who did very terrible things are very interested in not rotting in prison the rest of their lives? Do we understand that? Is that possible? Is it possible that deals are being made? Because look, I see a really, really deep swamp. I see Trump, and he has a small group of people in his cabinet, in the prime positions in his cabinet. We all agreed they were really good people. Pretty much everybody agreed that Trump's core cabinet was really good people. Okay, I'm not talking about Department of Agriculture lady. She's not core cabinet. But RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash. I think that the only one you can say there was some lukewarm stuff on was Pam Bondi, and that's relevant. I'm not trying to like gloss it over. However, Trump has said repeatedly how much he's with Pam Bondi and Kash. And Kash, when he got confirmed, specifically mentioned Pam Bondi and being on good terms with her. I have a very hard time believing people who have suffered a tremendous amount for MAGA, when there was no incentive or benefit to do it, facing complete ostracization. And then they come and they do this stuff, and Trump doubles down on supporting them. I have a really hard time believing that these people are traitors, or that these people, I think you have a very, very mild argument to make that, oh, well, they're afraid of something. Maybe. Trump survived an assassination attempt, 2 assassination attempts, right? Well, now he's really scared. I don't know. This doesn't fit the character profile. You want to look for what makes the most sense. And what makes the most sense to me is that Epstein and Trump's assassination attempt in Butler. And by the way, if we're talking about Trump being a narcissist, if what I'm saying is true, he's the least narcissistic person in the world, because he's actually using, somebody who would be very, very personally out for revenge immediate. Instead, he's using his own assassination attempts as leverage. Can you imagine this for a second? Epstein and the Butler assassination attempt specifically, these are the two big things, right? Or does it make more sense that these are being used by Trump to get things done? The big, beautiful bill passed. Super important bill, right? 20 times more ICE agents in the country. 20 times. ICE becomes one of the biggest militaries in the world. We could go into the whole thing. People have seen the LA traffic charts, how there's traffic in LA is half of what it used to be. You can actually get around the city because illegals are running and hiding. The big, beautiful bill was an enormous win. How did he get that through? Whose arms did he have to twist? This is the same thing with the Ukraine funding. People are upset because Trump's going to send some more stuff to Ukraine. Okay, first off, you can't just extricate yourself from this war. Second off, it's leveraged geopolitically as well to have the war keep going. I don't like this, okay? Everybody knows I have been opposed from the Ukraine war from the beginning. I am very pro-Russia in the Ukraine war. I am just being honest that if you have multiple things you want to accomplish internationally and domestically, you have a bunch of neocons, you people like Lindsey Graham, who love the bloodshed in Ukraine. You have to get these people on board to pass the big, beautiful bill to accomplish the core of the MAGA agenda and to get everything moving forward. Now, some of this is going to be blackmail that you now have access to because you have these files. And there's nuances to this because maybe what they're signaling is that the files were removed, but they still know that they were removed and they'll find out who removed them. There's a lot of different levels to this. There's a lot of, and I don't think it's prudent or relevant for us to try to micromanage the details here because they may even be case by case. But the bottom line is that you have to do some political wrangling to get this bill passed, and you do it through a combination of political bribery, legal bribery, right, which is horse trading, and leveraging people's blackmail against them. That's how this entire system is operated. If Trump just dumped the Epstein files out there, would that be better long term? Would it be better long term? Some might argue it is. You put the truth out there, you let the chips fall where they may. But maybe you end up having rather than having a controlled demolition of the old system where the pain to the public is marginal in the grand scheme of things, and you can reform things because you keep certain pillars up as you're doing this destruction. By just having the entire thing leveled, what happens instead is that you have a much bigger mess that maybe you can't recover from. I view political blackmail of the caliber of Epstein as nuclear weapons. You can use them, but it's a big line when you start to actually use it overtly. It's much better to just simply have the leverage of knowing that you own this information. They know you own the information. You have implicit power as a result of that, and you can get people to do things. And there's a carrot and a stick element to this, okay? So to me, this explanation makes a lot more sense. It makes a lot more sense than anything else put forward. And the second Trump starts losing on his agenda the entire way, I'm going to start believing that Trump is controlled. But if you're wrong about every single fucking thing that happens, and now you look at the Epstein situation and you say, this is proof that Trump can't do anything. You might be doing it for clicks. You might just be a little bit frustrated because you're personally invested in it. And I don't want to be too personal because a lot of people I like feel the same way about it. I actually really understand it. Like, I want these sickos, these pedophiles, these corrupt people, I want them dead as well. I want public trials. I want them dead. And I think in some cases we will get it, maybe through the military. I think in other cases we won't, unfortunately. We are not going to get the full information about many of these things. And the question we have to ask ourselves is it worth it to save the country? Is it worth it for the pedophile rings to get, ended? Is it worth it for 50 million people to get deported? What is it worth for you to not be gratified with a certain individual's trial? I do think stuff is going to come out in the future. I really do. But I'm also a pragmatist, and I want to win this war. I want to win this more than I want to get gratified. And all I see is Trump winning in a way that I couldn't win because I don't have the guile. Maybe it's just the term. I don't have the guile. I have enough ability to understand this. I don't know. I think it's really hard for, I think, Dan Bongino is a lot like me. He took this job wanting to serve the country, and I think he's been convinced about the benefits of what he's having to be a part of. But you don't think it pains these people to some extent to know that they have to lie or they have to lead the truth in order to accomplish a bigger objective? It probably frustrates them a lot. And I do think that many are still going to come to justice in the end, maybe through the military, because as Praying Medic said very accurately, the justice system is compromised, right? So in the meantime, we need to get what we need to get done. We need to get it done by whatever means necessary. I would much rather never know about Epstein if it meant the big, beautiful bill got passed. And maybe I'm wrong if that wasn't the reason, but I think I'm right. I think I'm right because everybody said it wasn't going to happen. Everybody said all these things weren't going to happen. There's only one last thing I want to end with here, okay? There is a really growing movement of people who absolutely hate the Jews at all costs, on all levels. And I am not a Jew lover, okay? I look at people on an individual basis. I know a lot of Jewish people in real life. They're good people. I also understand all this stuff, okay? I don't think I have to go into detail about what I'm talking about. I understand it, okay? I have as much of an issue with it as anybody else. But there is something that's growing that it's becoming like a big victim narrative. And it starts to get to a point where it's like, oh, we can't do anything. It's almost like, I understand that they have had a lot of these globalist Jews have had a lot of control behind the scenes of different things. But we're at a point now where there's this part of the dissident right that no longer views anything in any other terms but that, look, the Jews stopped this again. The Jews did this. The Jews did this. The Jews and it's a little bit too lazy, in my opinion. It's a little too lazy, and it's not explaining the world. It explains a lot of things, but it's disempowering, and it's not explaining a lot of what's going on right now. Because what I actually look at this group as being totally fucked, because everybody under 40 is rapidly hating them. And it's actually to the detriment of a lot of individual Jews who really have no relation to what's going on here. And I know a lot of people don't care, whatever. It's kind of funny that I feel like I'm almost being like put in this position. I'm just saying that people like Nick Fuentes makes a lot of good points. Nick Fuentes also, I said this on a previous show, and I want to make a bigger emphasis about it now. There is zero constructive attitude or ability to move anything forward. And I want you guys to think about this. It's stuff that I talk about with dating relationships, as above, so below. This is actually a really good point right here by Layman Shepherd. It's the manosphere of politics. Regardless of truth, it's still useless because it's so disempowering. It is disempowering. I have never heard Nick Fuentes point any direction forward. And all these people, Trump is winning and moving the agenda forward. And every single time something superficially looks a certain way, they are the first ones to say, Trump sold out, the Jews are winning again. And I'm sorry, but like, it just doesn't, to me, it reeks. I'm just going to say that. It reeks. It reeks of its own little psyop. And it's a little too coordinated across different categories for my taste. You know, for a very long time, it was a very taboo thing to even talk about, to even know about. And now it's a little too, and I've seen like Martyr Made, whose stuff I really appreciate a lot of his stuff, but I've seen him lie on a number of occasions about facts, deliberately, right? Or lazily, let's put it that way, maybe. So I don't know what this is, but remember that MAGA can be split from the right and not just the left. And I will say this, just because a group of international Jews who are connected to the global elite, right? Just because they created the state of Israel and it was their pet project, don't think for a second that they're not willing to sacrifice their own kind, or at least they're people who are labeled their own kind, because that's a whole different topic of conversation, right? Don't think they're not willing to do this, because we saw it happen before during World War II. And I'm not even saying accepting the entire official narrative on everything with World War II. But they certainly left a lot of sacrificial lambs there. Don't think that they would be willing to do it again. People have this assumption that they'll never give up the state of Israel. You don't think that for these people will give up anything for world power. Do you think that they care about the people in the state of Israel? You think they care about Jews on the ground in Israel? They don't care about those people. They don't care at all about those people. They care about power. The ends justify the means. They've already started talking about, oh, maybe Ukraine's the next Israel. They'll do another relocation, whatever. My point here is just that if we're playing a chess game, maybe Israel is the queen, but you have queen sacrifices. There are a lot of things that you're willing to sacrifice to win a game. You'll sacrifice any piece if it means winning the game. So I am just saying that it just became a little too, all of a sudden, this whole Trump is a Zionist, Trump is backing Israel nonstop, and Trump lives for Israel. This to me looks like another angle to divide MAGA that isn't based on reality, because if anything, it looks like Trump is turning Israel into his puppet, which is how it really should have been. Tail shouldn't have been wagging the dog. It's up for your consideration. But what I will say is this. Again, I'm going to reiterate it one last time. They were wrong. They've been wrong about Trump selling out every single fucking time. every single fucking time they've been wrong about it. So let's wait and see. And let's first off wait and see, what is the core part of MAGA? Deportations, taking America back. If MAGA keeps moving forward, maybe we should give Trump the benefit of the doubt that he is really running the fucking show. Maybe he is actually running the show. Maybe he's got the right team in place, and maybe we are going to get to an end game here. There's one last thing I want to say, and I didn't get these screenshots for you, but on this point, do you know what the big thing recently was? It was about Q being an Israeli psyop. They were saying all the posts were coming from on 4chan were coming from Israel, and it was a lie. They lied about it. And the reason I think this is important is, why are they lying about that? Why, like, I saw this, I'm like, is that really true? I went and I looked. There was tons of stuff completely debunking it. It was fraud. And this is what I mean. Like, Martyr Maid's done similar kind of things on this, Daryl Cooper. So why are they lying about this? It will take everybody by surprise. It's actually brilliant. I have to give them credit. It's brilliant, because you couldn't stop people from moving to the right. So how do you throw them off? Now you try to push them too far. You try to take them off reality in the other direction. They were resisting it for so long, they realized they couldn't do it. So then they start to push from the other direction. It's not something your average person, even your average Trump supporter, is going to expect. So you have to be mindful of this, that they can manipulate in many different ways. We have to keep looking, judging it by its fruits. Judge it by its fruits. Judge Trump by his fruits. Just look, the second Trump really starts to cuck and starts failing and things start falling apart, I'm going to believe it. But right now, I feel like the main effective attack, because the left is fucking castrated right now. The people on the left are being ready to be wiped out. They know they can't really save them. They are going to try to destroy MAGA from the right. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be moving towards a very, very nationalistic policy in America. I said it very publicly on Twitter that I think Western civilization is going to survive. I don't know if democracy is going to survive because of what needs to be done. So don't think I'm not on the right. I'm on the right. But I know I see a movement to drive people away from Trump. And I don't know if Elon Musk is a part of that. That is a whole different ball game, which we'll talk about on their show. But I think this is enough, guys, for today. I think you got the point. I don't want to belabor it. But stay frosty. Keep the big picture in mind. Oh, there was one last thing I wanted to say. I'm glad I remember this. The weapons to Ukraine. Trump sends some more weapons to Ukraine, perhaps. I mean, I think he will. But what did he deprive Ukraine of? What did Hegseth say that they couldn't have? Air interceptors. Trump gives them some more, MREs, gives them some more, body armor and machine guns and shells. They have no air interceptors. They're completely at the mercy of the Russian Air Force. So look, here is the thing, and yeah, I know it's cynical, but you know what? The world is a cynical place to some extent. He's providing them with things that won't allow them to change the course of the war. It's superficial. It's boilerplate. Okay? It is not game-winning technology. It's not like Biden, who kept trying to give them new stuff. Trump is pulling back on the stuff that Ukraine really needs because it's not in America's interest. So if he gives them slop, don't fall for the headline. Look at the details here. Yes, Layman Shepard said it perfectly. It's practically humanitarian aid. Okay? It's not a coincidence that Trump got what he wanted in the Iran-Israel situation, and Russia was basically given carte blanche in Ukraine. Just because Trump doesn't draw attention to the fact that he's giving Putin free reign in Ukraine doesn't mean it's not happening. Optics are very important. You're going to have to learn to read between the lines. Or if you just want the outrage clicks, you're going to get the outrage clicks. That's not what we do at CABAL. We drink wine and we get to the truth of matters. So I love you guys. Hey, have a good summer. I'll see you in a week or two. We'll see what happens next. Take care.